Hello. Good morning, everyone. कैसे हैं आप सब? Hope from wherever you're watching. I mean, morning तो मेरे लिए है, but if you're watching from India, hope you're having a great night. Yeah, wherever you are in the world, hope you're having a great day. आज I thought, okay, let's do a quick nugget video. I was initially thinking of doing a longer deep dive, but फिर मैंने सोचा चलो आप सबका थोड़ा न्यू ईयर बिगाड़ते हैं. So I'll bring that on maybe the 29th or the 30th. And usme I want to discuss the IMF report that has come out, which is very positive for Canada in a sense that okay, maybe maybe Canada's not as badly hurt by US tariffs and whatnot. तो उसके तो फिर मैं वही सोच रहा हूँ एंड ऑफ द ईयर आपको 2025 के रैप अप पे बहुत बोर करूंगा. But for today, I came across an article a couple of days back, and then उसी के related मैंने एक और article भी ढूंढा है, and I'm gonna try and sort of combine the story together with what I feel has happened in Canadian politics over the past 1 year. And I think it's an appropriate time to discuss it because we are coming to a close of 2025. Honestly, हमारे 2026 में कोई certainty तो ऐसी है नहीं. So it might be good to just take a look at where our politics is standing. I'm not trying to support one way or the other. In fact, matlab, I have been more or less proven quite incorrect about how things have panned out. Like all my predictions have basically been false. So I'm happy to admit that TK, when it comes to making a politics related prediction, I need more training. More than happy to accept that. So let's start with, let's see. I'll pull up the article that actually prompted me to think about doing this one. So let me put that up. So ये एक Toronto Sun का article है. This came up on December 21st. So it's not that old. Pierre Poilievre under pressure as Conservative caucus cracks. And what it's saying is MPs defect, unity phrase, and a leadership review looms for the Conservative leader. So, as we all know, Conservative leader is Pierre Poilievre, and he may be, there might be some sort of a election within the Conservative Party to get a new leader. Unfortunately, Conservatives lost the election. When I say unfortunately, I mean from their perspective in that sense. But they lost the election, and then also the Conservative leader, currently leader of opposition, Pierre Poilievre, lost his original seat. He had to be parachuted in by, fighting a by-election in a very quote-unquote hardcore Conservative riding, which he won, which he was basically destined to win in that sense. And so he could go back into the parliament. So, अगर आप लोगों ने thumbnail देखा है, you have already seen कि, this is basically, if I had to summarize by take, it basically looks like since the Liberals have taken some decisions, which quote unquote could be considered in the Conservative ballpark, maybe that's why we are seeing this happening, where the Conservative caucus is under pressure just because MPs have literally two MPs have crossed the floor. So without getting too far ahead, वो सब अभी हम डिस्कस करेंगे. पहले ये आर्टिकल देखते हैं. चलिए. Sitting in the boardroom, ठीक है, ये चलेगा. The Conservative Party is also in flux. Two MPs have crossed the floor. Another has announced his resignation, and more may leave to other political ventures, or worse, for Poilievre, join the Liberals and grant Mark Carney a majority. If that happens, Poilievre dismisses the idea that he would or should step down as party leader. Look, I'm not here to decide if Mr. Poilievre should remain the leader of the Conservatives or not. Ultimately, it's their process that's going to decide that. तो मैं उस पे It's okay. I'm not going to comment on it. But the fact of the matter is, if there is really a threat of conservative MPs joining the Liberal Party, then that 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 spells doom in a way, because you're literally seeing the whole political spectrum going through a huge upheaval. Basically, let's take an example. This happens from time to time in democracies, that parties end up basically switching entirely, swapping entirely, or where they're sitting on the political spectrum. So this happened in the US, that long back during the age of Abraham Lincoln and everyone, it was actually the Democrats who had more Republican views, and Republicans which had more quote unquote Democrat views. Now, over time, that changed, and I believe I could be wrong about this, but right about the time of JFK, you could say that the whole swap had happened. That Democrats were sitting where we think of Democrats as sitting today, and the Republicans are sitting where we think of Republicans as sitting today. So I would say there is some indication in Canada currently to say that that might be happening between these two parties. Abhi, the thing is, Canada में multiple party system है, so there's NDP and there is Bloc Québécois. Those are the two sort of, I still don't consider them as major federal level players, but ठीक है, they are news cycle में बने रहते हैं, चर्चा चलती रहती है. So let's say there are these two other sort of quasi national parties, and then there's a little bit of a French party called the Greens. उनको दो तीन सीट मिल जाती हैं, वो बेचारे खुश हो जाते हैं. So let's go down here. It comes down to a very simple question, Brian: who runs the party? Backroom deal makers, or the welders and waitresses and plumbers and police officers, the soldiers, the small business people who are actually going to be delegates at the convention? They decide who the leader is, and they will decide when they vote, Polyev said. So Polyev is basically saying, okay, who runs the party? Is it backroom deal makers, or the people who, you could say, the working class? The welders, waitresses, all these sort of professions which make up the professional working class of Canada in that sense. Echoes of the O'Toole leadership ouster. So people who have been maybe following Canadian politics since 2022, or even before that, remember how Erin O'Toole, the previous Conservative leader, was ousted, and then came in Pierre Poilievre after that. So again, it's saying that, okay, this is the vibe right now in the Conservative caucus, is that of what we had in 2022. It may be. It's an interesting stance for him to take, given that the leadership of the Conservative Party opened up for him in February 2022, when a group of MPs decided to oust former leader Erin O'Toole. Several of the key players in that bloodless coup were also key organizers for Poilievre's campaign. फिर, yeah, I guess this is the case of Jesse Carney, Vesi Bharni, as you sow, so shall you reap. But again, in politics, this happens all the time. Someone has to ask someone else to come in. All these are not atypical things. You see it all the time. So to blame Poilievre or Poilievre's supporters for doing what they did, and now to blame maybe the current ones trying to oust Pierre, I don't think it's just not very atypical. This happens all the time. You almost expect it to happen, given how the Conservative Party fared in the federal election. Although they're not too far. I mean, if I just do a quick search, right? Okay, Canadian. Actually, I don't know. 238 Canada. I know it's okay. 338 Canada May. I want to see. So at a 338 Canada federal projection, दिखा रहा है. Okay. So right now, let's say, yeah. So this is 338 Canada. It's 343 now, but this is the previous number of seats at the federal level. So Conservative Party has 141. Liberal Party has won 61. So the gap is actually not that much. But again, no one has an absolute majority. For anyone to get an absolute majority, जो Green Party के हैं, I think they'll basically support the Liberals. But for them, for Liberals to have an absolute majority, um, they'll need 11 more seats. Right now, they're saying, okay, two have crossed the floor. So I would say Delhi Durast. It's a little far from, oh, they'll suddenly have the absolute majority and then they can do whatever they want. Um, let's see if they mention. I think it was only two, right? Yeah, two MPs have crossed the floor. Another has announced resignation, and more may leave. More may leave. That May is a big May. Let's leave the May to the May. Whether it happens or not, we'll know when it happens. Let's go down. The party can remove him if they choose, but right now he's in the fortunate position that no one is organizing to do so. So again, no one is looking to remove him. The party may choose to remove him. Yeah, it's my opinion on this is that conservatives basically stop doing conservative politics, you know, and I'll go into why that is the case. Or I actually don't know why that is the case, but I know that then when the Liberal Party got elected, they started doing a lot of the things that we would typically expect conservatives to do. And, before the elections, there was that whole scene where Pierre Poilievre became viral, right? He's eating an apple. He's giving witty, quick answers to the journalist who's asking him questions. Um, and he's giving real, quote unquote, conservative answers to that, right? So everyone who said, okay, people who wanted to vote conservative had a reason to vote conservative. The leader was talking conservative stuff. And then suddenly he disappeared from the scene for a bit, came back on, फिर वही आपका इनका, Canada's version of सबका साथ, सबका विकास चालू हो गया. So conservative voters got confused. And ultimately, they could have won it. They could have won more seats, but then, okay, they ended up shy of an absolute majority. The good thing is, for whatever reason, even the Liberals didn't get absolute majority. So if the Conservatives want to come back on track, they have to start talking conservative stuff. ये रोज के जो ड्रामे चलते हैं इनके, that just has to stop. And you cannot have a leader who loses his own seat. That is something that Mr. Poilievre will have to look at his own resume. How did that happen? Right? And this is true all over the world. Like, if the party leader loses their own seat, it's very difficult for the party to start reconvincing people. In Canada, it's slightly different because the quote unquote provincial conservative parties are run more or less independently from the federal conservative party, but then they all align to become one conservative party, whatever. But the thing is, if you want to show seriousness, you just need a serious leader. And फिर वो हो जाता है that you know who's going to vote for you. Speak for them. I'm not saying you can leave everyone else behind, but at some point you have to make sure, if you see, winning an election and then doing something for the country once you're in power, there are two different things. When you're trying to win an election, you have to know who your target audience is. When you win an election, you're sitting in Ottawa, then your target audience is Canadians, right? All Canadians. But when you want to win an election, you're going to have to understand कि तुम्हारे लिए वोट कौन करना चाहता है. And आप उनको उनके लिए उनके हिसाब से आप अपने whatever manifesto में you put your bullet points, right? Somewhere down the line, after Prime Minister Trudeau resigned, Mark Carney, or then He became the he became the face of the Liberal Party. Suddenly, overall, we started seeing that the Conservatives are, lost for balance. कि अब हम क्या करें? Oh my God! When you center your whole campaign around one person, when you center your whole campaign around not being something, as soon as that switch is flipped, you don't know what you stand for. It's always good to structure your campaign on what you stand for versus I'm not that, so please vote for me. And that's what's happened. That's what happened in the elections, and we're seeing a continuation of that. Essentially, that's my sort of analysis of the whole 2025 situation. Let's go inside. Keeping caucus on site ahead of Calgary convention. That said, with three MPs having left, and more rumored to be looking to cross the floor, Poilievre needs to keep his caucus members on side. The House comes back from Christmas break on Jan 26, just days before the Calgary convention and leadership review. Okay. Are they come back on Jan 26th? What nonsense! Man, they get so much vacation. This is I didn't know this. अब 5 तारीख से काम शुरू करने वाले हैं यार. ये 26 तारीख को वापस आएंगे. What? Anyway, I don't know what to say. ठीक है, enjoy your vacation, guys. If he was smart, he'd be doing what he can between now and then to make MPs feel valued, wanted. In the past, Poilievre has told members at caucus meetings that they can have their say, but that doesn't mean they will have their sway. I don't think that's a bad statement, but at the end of the day, you need a strong leader who takes decisions, who decides on the direction. But again, the direction you set, is that in line with your target audience? Essentially, you're trying to make your product more popular among the people. There is a set of people who have a set of expectations from you. And if you're not going to fulfill those and you're going to try and get everyone, see, Canada is then, if you look at Canada, the whole country, you'll find people all across the spectrum, right? You will have your very, very, very left leaning people, because you got to remember, NDP is still a force in the provinces, right? So, matlab, there are people who are on the far left, but then there are conservative people sitting in Alberta, Saskatchewan, you know, to a fair extent, even in Ontario. It's not, they don't win, but, to a fair extent, even in Ontario, it's the Conservative Party of Ontario that's ruling the province. Not ruling, but governing the province, right? Then you have Quebec with its own completely different shades of everything. So Canada is not a monolith. But to win an election, you need to get seats. You have to be first past the post on a majority number of seats to be able to form your government. To that extent, then you have to see where are people going to vote for you? Where can you be that first past the post person so that you can win that seat and so that you can get to that magic number of 172? If you don't do that, then you're going to confuse everyone with, what do you stand for? Right? So it's a fine message if you're 20 points up in the polls and a popular leader like he was a year ago, but things have definitely changed since then. Yes, I mean, I can't disagree with this. If he was smart, that's fine. In reality, Poilievre has 2 leadership reviews underway. There is the one in Jan, where the party members vote, and in that one, he's expected to do well. But thanks to the Conservatives adopting the Reform Act, he's under constant review with his MPs. Poilievre knows the message he will deliver in Calgary to party members before they vote. ये Reform Act पे हम अलग से एक चर्चा करेंगे, so I'm going to leave that out of this discussion. Otherwise, it'll just become too long. This is supposed to be a nugget, so I'm going to try and keep it under 30 minutes. वो होने नहीं वाला, but ठीक है. That's the aim. My message to them will be that, we got a record number of votes in the last election, which is theoretically true. We have led the debate on carbon taxes, inflation, housing costs, crime, natural resources, drugs, and more, and we will win in the next election to deliver on them. See, I don't think the messaging is wrong, and I'll get to that in a bit. I think at least what I'm seeing a little bit of a twist around again. But again, this is still a little confusing to people, to the average person who doesn't read the news every day. This is still a little confusing. Okay, you have led the debate. Did you win the debate? Like again, let's get into this in the next article. Now he needs a message for the MPs and senators that make up the Conservative caucus. The team is not as united and motivated as they once were. They aren't willing to sit and watch the peer show play out. Um, Again, this kind of goes back to what this article was written on: MPs crossing the floor. A few may even actually join the Liberals. So again, interesting set of circumstances. Caucus management can be a time-consuming task, but successful politicians need to do it, need to master it. Brian Mulroney used to call his MPs all the time just to see if they needed anything, and he was leader. Doug Ford is in constant contact with his MPPs, listening to their concerns and delegating issues they raise to be dealt with. So if this is not happening within the Conservative Party right now, where you have the leader just staying in touch with the MPs, okay, what do you need? Can I help you in any way? Then that's a very bad sign. It's not just for a political party. This is a very bad sign when you are even in a corporate company or anything. If you don't have the leadership seeking your feedback, seeking your input in some form or the other, the organization won't go very far. Yes, you need a leader at the end of the day to make a decision, but everyone needs to feel that they were heard in order to get to that decision. Um, some readers may laugh at the idea there could be an election next year. Conservatives could win it, but if the last year has taught us anything, Pierre Poilievre in particular, you never know how the year will unfold. I've always been against another election. The simple reason is not because, okay, some political party will win, and most likely it'll again be a hung parliament like it is right now. ऐसा कुछ change नहीं हो जाएगा. And I'll go into why again. But it's just too much wastage of taxpayer money. That's my take on this. Why do you want another election? Let the government do its job. And the past year, with everything that it has not been that bad overall, with everything that Canada has had to face: tariffs, uncertainties. Um, it's actually been fine. And again, that'll be the final deep dive of this year on this channel, where I'll go into what IMF has said about Canada. IMF directly has said this about Canada, not me, not making up something. Again, I'll always share a proper document. Chalo, let's go to the next one. Move. Okay, stop. Okay, मैं दूसरा आर्टिकल डालता हूँ. खुला ही नहीं है. Interesting. Okay, let me open that up really quickly. Okay. Here is why I feel, this is, you could say, in summary, why I feel that you are seeing the MPs, the Conservative MPs, cross the floor. एक तो है आपका कि Conservative side पे messaging थोड़ी सी jumbled up हो गई थी. So you don't know what do they stand for. The other thing is, now we are seeing Prime Minister Carney's administration actually coming out and saying, okay, we are going to do federal cuts. We are going to reduce the size of the government. Again, I'm not advocating that people lose jobs. It's difficult to find work. I feel for them. I'm not denying that. But the fact of the matter is that the government spending is at unsustainable levels, and it's got to start somewhere, right? And they are actually, if you already have an article in the global news saying something like this, then I would assume that they're pretty serious about it. When we go down into this article again, it's saying Ottawa is looking to cut program spending and administration costs by about 60 billion over the next 5 years through its comprehensive expenditure review. This is like, this is softer verbiage, but it's almost like, okay, it feels like, a little bit like what Doge was doing in the States. They were going about it in a very um, very in your face fashion. Canada's style is not going in your, is never sort of going in your face. But ye kya hai, comprehensive expenditure review? It is essentially going over every place where the federal government spends money and deciding what to keep and what not to keep. Now we have a liberal administration. They don't have absolute majority, but okay, they call most of the shots. So now, who's looking more conservative? That is the question, and that is what takes me back to the thumbnail that I have, right? Seemingly, since we have a liberal prime minister, all of this is getting funneled to the liberals. It is, they are taking, the liberal government is taking steps that you would expect a conservative government to take. One of the other big ones is the cap on international students down to 150,000. The other one is looking at this federal spending. They're cutting it down, right? I think they have revised the tax brackets a bit. I don't know to what extent. I haven't looked into it in this much in too much depth yet. And if the answer be like dekha nahi hai. But again, if they're going to try and reduce taxes a bit, these are all things you would expect a conservative government to do, right? Inflation has actually averaged about 2% for the whole year. I mean, let's do a quick search. So let's do a quick search. Yeah, so average inflation in Canada, which includes November 2025, is approximately 2.2%. And the federal target rate is between 2 and 3%. That's not too bad. You're literally at the lower end of your target range, coming out of a very inflationary period. That's a relief, right? Since the carbon tax was done away with, at least at the federal level, the gas prices have come down. I literally saw gas prices at about 133 in the greater Vancouver area, where that was actually the level of gas prices when I'd moved to Vancouver in 2021. All of these things add or improve your standard of living, right? Exchange rate is slightly down again. So I'll pull that up also for everyone. Let me see if I can quickly. But यार हाँ ठीक है तो let's look at this one quickly as well. मैं इसको हटा के okay यहाँ पे इसको ऐसे डालता हूँ so that I can share this window, right? Yeah. ये रहा आपका exchange rate. This is over the past 6 months. We started at 1.37, went down, went up again. Let's look at the 1-year chart. Because I don't have the exact point where the election results happened and then the new government came in. So I'm just going to show you for this whole year. We started at 1.44. We are at 1.37. 1.367. So, थोड़ा सा और push मिल गया तो we could maybe end the year at 1.36. In a year where Canada has been slapped on with tariffs and then Canada tried retaliatory tariffs, फिर वो tariffs हट गए, अब CUSMA is coming up for review next year. So, the market is already trying to factor that in a little bit. And we are still seeing a strengthening of the CAD against the USD. So overall, these things have improved our lives, whether we like it or not, right? So this again, let me pull up my other one. Yeah, let's go back to the public servants article. They're planning to cut 60 billion of spending over the next 5 years. Again, the budget had some positive hints. We did a deep dive on the whole budget that came out, so please do go watch that one. Yeah. So, Environment and Climate Change Canada said in a message to its employees that the department will implement expenditure review decisions mid-Jan. While there's no perfect timing for these conversations in the new year, okay, fine. They're like, यार आप आपकी छुट्टियां enjoy कर लो, उसके बाद हमको अगर आपको bad news देनी होंगी तो हम दे देंगे. That's basically what's being said here. Now, let's go back. Yeah, let's go down to where there are some numbers. The government plans to cut the number of public service jobs by 40,000 from a peak of 368,000 in 2023-2024. And about 10,000 have already been eliminated, right? Reduction of 1,000 executive positions. So in one of my past lives, I also spoke on another article that came out, which said that the amount of or the number of people in government services that earn more than 150,000 a year has gone up by 96% over the past 5 years. So it looks like they're looking at that number as well, right? The immigration department will eliminate around 300 positions. The federal government has sent letters with information on its planned early retirement to 68,000 public servants who may be eligible. That's a huge number. 68,000 over I mean, 10,000 have been, let's say about 300,000, right? Let's say it's about 350,000 अगर आपकी federal workforce है इस समय. You have sent an early retirement, or you have identified 68,000 for early retirement. That's a huge number. That's 20%. And that's actually, if they get something like this done, that'll be the best win-win we can get out of this, right? So if you have some people who take an early retirement, they are getting a pension, they are getting, they can keep running their household, but you're still reducing the burden on federal expenditure. So because you don't have to pay the full salary, you don't have to pay all the benefits under the sun, so you get a little bit of relief on that. So it's still not ideal, but it's the best win-win you can get in a federal government structure which is too heavy for a country of 41 million. Let's go down. It said it anticipates a reduction in executive position 10 to 15%. That's not trivial. That's a fair amount. Those cuts will be in addition to 300 positions. Okay. 10 to 15% executive positions is for IRCC. Government data shows 11,148 people were working at IRCC as of March 31st, with 293 of them in executive positions. You get rid of about 15% of these, even 10%. So you're basically going to get rid of 30 to 40 people. That is in addition to the 300 positions. So from 11,148, you're going to reduce down. So you'll be at about 10,500, right? So here is my take. I have a small deck today, just a slide, guys, just to bring my just to bring my argument to a close, actually, what we are seeing now is this. Let's see. Do I have it open? Yeah, let's go here. So, in my opinion, if we go to the bottom of this slide, when we had Prime Minister Trudeau, the Liberal Party was. Let's imagine that okay, ये जो line है हमारी, you have the left and the right. So, and then between these two lines, you have what you could call the centrist. This is just a representation. This is not an official way of. This is not data driven or anything. This is just a visual to show what I'm thinking is happening. You had under Prime Minister Trudeau, the Liberals were basically sitting squarely on the left and left only. So whoever the centrists were, whoever the conservatives were, they felt they were not being heard. Now, with their coalition with the NDP, which basically functioned as an absolute majority for them, the rest of Canada, which could roughly be said, okay, 50% of Canada felt, okay, they're not being heard at all. Then Prime Minister Trudeau resigns. You have another election. Conservative Party messes up its messaging, and in comes Prime Minister Carney. Now we are seeing that the Conservatives, well, I don't know where they sit. I just had to put their blue box somewhere. But we are seeing Liberals basically occupying this entire space. They are doing things that you would expect a conservative government to do. Now, an argument could be made that, let me show you guys what I mean. Stop screen. Let me share this one. Okay, let me see which window I had that open in. Okay, I don't have. Let's see. Close. Yeah. Okay. Great. चलो ये यहाँ पे है ना. So this is from 338. Right now we are sitting at 161, 141. This is the mix that's making the nation run, in my opinion. You could make an argument that a lot of the quote unquote conservative things that you're seeing happening, or the conservative actions that are being taken by the government, is because liberals themselves don't have a majority. Last I checked, the carbon tax is reduced to 0%. I don't think it's gone. And I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong on that. Right? मुझे नहीं पता कि वो actually हटा दिया है या has it been reduced to 0%, but it still is, in a sneaky way still there. But I think for all intents and purposes, at some level, you do see that the near perfect mixing of the liberals and the conservatives is coming together in a very positive manner at a federal level for the country, right? It could be that the liberals themselves want to do all the conservative things that they are doing, or it could be that, okay, they never can get a full majority to pass a bill. So they have to rope in conservative support. And then to rope in that conservative support, they have to make it quote unquote more conservative friendly. But again, the common person who is sitting in their homes, who reads maybe one news article a day, who doesn't follow politics like a hawk, उनके लिए तो it looks like कि भाई liberals ही conservatives का सारा काम कर रहे हैं. So the visual I showed is more around, okay, what the perception could be. The reality could be, okay, it's because of the healthy tussle that's happening within the Canadian Parliament. That's why we are seeing all these conservative actions come into existence, even though you see the Conservative Party does not have an absolute majority, neither do the Liberals. But I also want to pose this last question. चलो मान लो liberals को absolute majority मिल जाए, enough of these MPs cross the floor. उसके बाद, do we think that these policies will stay in place the exact way they are right now, or will we start, moving more to the left? Alternatively, if through any through any means we see that the conservatives end up getting an absolute majority, how much, again, going back to their whole confused messaging during the election campaign, will they actually do all the quote unquote conservative things that the conservative side of Canada will expect them to do? The the hard answer is we don't know about either of these scenarios. मतलब हमें नहीं पता है क्योंकि right now as it stands it's at 141 and 161. So my conclusion to this whole drama that we are seeing is that the main reason, or maybe one of the bigger driving reasons on why we are seeing the country itself coming back more in the center, is because of the healthy imbalance between LPC and CPC in the parliament. Because they both literally have to agree before something can get passed, because they by themselves don't have enough MPs. And the thing is, the bloc will more or less always support liberals, from what I understand. I don't follow them too closely. But again, the NDP is not considered an official party because they have less than 10 seats. I'm not sure what that technical terminology is. GPC, not relevant, 2 seats, fine. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think we are, as a country, in a pretty positive space as we go into the new year. Of course, the global perspective is filled with confusion. So, ab keh nahi sakte. For the country itself, okay, maybe more challenging times, but I think we are in a positive headspace overall. And that's coming directly from the mix that we have in the parliament in Ottawa right now. Prime Minister Carney has negotiated with the Premier of Alberta as well. Pipeline वगैरह सब चालू हो रहा है. I see a lot of news coming in. Oh, बेच दिया, ये कर दिया, वो कर दिया, कुछ नहीं होने वाला. हो जाएगा, टाइम लगता है. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't start building a bloody pipeline overnight. So I think overall I think Canada has had a good year, I would personally say. And that good year will get more quantified in the next deep dive that I'm going to do on the IMF report. But I think that good year can be attributed to, first and foremost, the decisions that are being taken by Prime Minister Carney's government. Whether you like it or not, sensible decisions have come out of Ottawa throughout the year. Sensible compromises have been made, and overall, the country is in a decent spot. And I would say people's heads are in the right space just because we did remove the retaliatory tariffs, and that was in interest of Canadians more than anything else. Now, the student cap, okay, 150,000. Again, the students who are going to all the top tier universities of Canada, the international students, they're still being admitted. If you're going to a U of T, you're welcome. If you're going to a UBC, you're welcome. Again, these are just names. I'm not saying any other, I don't know the entire list, so forgive me for that. But students who are going to the best of the best in Canada, Waterloo and all these places, they're still being admitted. And uske hisab se wo 150,000 ki jo limited, it works, right? At the end of the day, Canada is a 2.5 odd trillion dollar economy. And uske hisab se 150,000 students a year, it's fair game. So let's see what the next year has in hold. for all of us. I think obviously the second reason is what I just showed on the screen, that there is a healthy mix of liberals and conservatives in the parliament. So we see overall, since both the parties were, trying to converge to the center by the time the elections were happening, we are seeing good centrist decision making coming out. So yeah, good luck to Canada for the next year. Obviously, the CUSMA review is going to be one of the biggest points of next year as we go into next year. I think the negotiations will start in Jan, so we'll have to keep a close eye on those. But yeah, other than that, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Please spread our word. हमारा हमारा word, हमारे क्या कहते हैं यार हमारा मैसेज लोगों तक पहुंचाइए. वो प्लीज कमेंट ऑन व्हाट यू लाइक, प्लीज कमेंट ऑन व्हाट यू डोंट लाइक. गाली देनी है प्लीज गाली दीजिए, बट सब्सक्राइब जरूर कीजिए और हमारा मैसेज आगे बढ़ाइए. हैव अ ग्रेट रेस्ट ऑफ द डे एवरीवन. चलो टाटा.